Welcome, and thank you for standing by. All participants will be in a listen-only mode until the question-and-answer portion of the presentation. During that time, if you would like to ask a question, please press star 1 and record your name when prompted. As a reminder, this call is being recorded. If you have any objections, you may disconnect at this time. Now, I would like to turn the call over to your host, Linda Lee. You may begin. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Linda Lee, and I want to welcome everyone to the Exploring Census Data webinar series. This is our 4th installment of the series where we bring you monthly webinars based on popular topics. Our webinars are presented in a format where we include real-life use cases and the opportunity for Q&A at the end of each session. And if you would like to view it again, we offer recordings and transcripts of our past webinars on our site, typically between 5 to 10 business days after the live session. So please note, we are utilizing technology off-site to continue operations, and we aim to minimize interruptions as much as possible. And we appreciate your patience if we experience any technical delays. Please utilize the chat feature to notify us of issues should any arise, and we will do our best to address and mitigate them. Today's webinar on using census data to buy a house is the 3rd webinar in the series for this year. And today we have 2 speakers ready to share knowledge on how you can use census data in your decision-making when it comes to the purchase of a home. Let's take a look at what we will be covering today. I will start off with a high-level overview about the Census Bureau. Then I'll pass the presentation over to our first speaker, Ms. Melinda Caskey. Melinda is a survey statistician from our business data side of the house. She will be presenting information from our programs called the American Housing Survey and the Rental Housing Finance Survey. Melinda will also be highlighting a program called the Characteristics of New Housing. Then our next speaker is Ms. Amanda Klimek. Amanda is a survey statistician from our program called the American Community Survey. Amanda will be taking you on a journey to include demographic information that you can use when you're looking to purchase a home. Now, in addition to learning about the data that are available, both Melinda and Amanda will be demonstrating how to access the data on the Census Business Builder and our data dissemination platform, data.census.gov. And at the end of the presentation, we will close out with a Q&A session. The Census Bureau is the federal government's largest of the 17 primary statistical agencies where we conduct over 130+ surveys each year. Now, listed on this slide are some of our well-known surveys that you may be familiar with. Most people are familiar with the population and housing count, the decennial census, taking place every 10 years. Next is the American Community Survey. It is an annual survey on the nation's population, and in a moment, Amanda will take a dive into more details for you. Next is the Economic Census. This is our most comprehensive program for business data, taking place every 5 years in the years ending in 2 and 7. And the Census of Government is the public sector's counterpart of the Economic Census. Now, in addition to these surveys, there are more than 30 household surveys and over 60 economic programs. When you have a moment, I highly encourage you to check out census.gov and learn about other surveys that we conduct and the types of data that may interest you. This slide shows the relationship between the frequency of data releases and the level of details. Now, in general, the more timely the data, the less details, with the economic census at the bottom of the pyramid because it takes place every 5 years, and it is the most comprehensive data source when it comes to business data. Now, as you move up the pyramid, the data are released more frequently with less details. Now, for today's webinar, you'll be seeing data primarily from the middle part of the pyramid, the annual programs. So with that being said, in addition to the survey programs that we will be featuring today, we have many other housing and construction survey programs that you may find helpful in using census data to buy a house. The programs that you may find helpful in your decision-making are listed in the reference section after the contact information slide. Now, when you reference this list, you'll find that we have timely programs available from other tiers of the pyramid as well. And now I would like to turn it over to my colleague, Ms. Melinda Caskey.
Thank you so much for that great introduction, Linda. I'm going to share my screen content. And in just one moment. Aha, that is what we're looking for. Thanks for that excellent introduction. I want to start by talking about a scenario that is 100% true. It focuses on the East Coast, and I apologize to all of our friends in the central and western states for being Eastern-centric, but I promise that the tools I'm going to show you will be just as useful for where you live. So I found a posting for a house that I like that needs some remodeling in Kinsale, Virginia, which is in Westmoreland County, Virginia. And it needs some work, probably new windows and an HVAC, but the price is right, and it's water adjacent. It has great square footage and comes with 5 acres of land. And there it is. Yeah, it's a little tired, but look at that water view. It just needs a little bit of love and attention. Now, this location is pretty remote and rural. The largest town nearby is Colonial Beach, which has only 3,574 people, and it's 37 miles away. The next largest town is Montrose, which only has 431 people. Now, I've lived in rural areas before, and I know the charms and the challenges of rural life, but I need to know some more before I fall in love with this property. Now, you can see from this sky view that there are neighbors at the waterfront. A little wider, though, and you can see nothing else but agriculture and wetlands. Even further out is more of the same. And at this widest view, you can see Colonial Beach barely up on the left corner, about as far away as you can get with no straight way of getting there. And Montrose is only a little further southeast. If I'm going to remodel this house and live there, I need to know how much space to plan for food storage and paper products. Is there even a grocery store nearby, or do I have to drive a really long way to get what we need? I know a census tool that can help me, the Census Business Builder. Now, the Census Business Builder was created, as the name suggests, to help business owners to get a comprehensive picture of their market, their competition, and their customers. But it's going to be fantastic for our purposes. The Census Business Builder is a comprehensive tool that combines the demographic data and economic data from the Census Bureau in one tool. It's updated all the time to add functions and new data as it becomes available. And you can create custom reports, and the geography for some of this data is as fine as a census tract, which is neighborhood level. I do have some links here to the tool, and also a link to the YouTube video that we've made that explains more about how a business owner would use it. But we're going to go to the tool itself. This link is identical to the one on the previous page, but I put it in here as a path so that you can see how easy it is to navigate to at the Census website. And these are the parameters that we're going to put in. The location is Westmoreland County. The type of business is retail. And I'm going to put in convenience store, even though that's not what we're looking for, just to show you that there are more ways to navigate. But I'm also going to expand the question. If there are grocery stores that are big enough for our weekly shopping, or if there are mostly mom and pop shops that are only going to be good for midweek bread and milk. So here we're going to the Census Business Builder link. So you see I've already put in Westmoreland County, Virginia, which is one of our geographies, and I'm going to click on retail and convenience store and go to the map. Because once I'm in the map, there's another feature that can help you to get where you need to be. We'll give it one moment. Now, see, there's Westmoreland County, Virginia. But now up here, you have an option to change your industry. And you may not know exactly what NAICS codes are, but you can put a keyword search in here. So if I put in grocery, you can see there's a lot of specific and general grocery store listings. We're going to use the most general listing for grocery store and select that industry. Now you can see that there are 8 grocery stores in Westmoreland County. That's good, but we need to know more. If they're all really tiny and they only sell sliced American cheese, we're going to have a problem. So I click on the button that says Create Report, so we can get a report on grocery stores in Westmoreland County. Now, Census Business Builder in these reports will first give you demographic and socioeconomic characteristics of potential customers and housing characteristics. But if you get down into the report here, the employer business information, there are the 8 grocery stores that the report said, just like we saw it on the map. But we can also see that the average number of employees is 20, and only 4 have less than 5 employees. So, putting that together, that's really promising. So 4 of the 8 stores are likely mom and pop shops where we can get a few things midweek. But at least 4 are large enough that they probably carry some nice cheddar or some smoky provolone. So I probably won't need to integrate too much extra food storage in my remodel. But while we're here, I have another question that could impact my remodel. I really like to get together with friends and watch sports and enjoy adult beverages. So is there somewhere in Westmoreland County to do that? I'm selecting food service industries and bars. And you can see there are none listed. So perhaps I should integrate that into my space for my remodeling. But I want to find out more about this because there are counties that don't have alcohol sales. So this report will even help you understand more about that county. So I'm scrolling down the report again, past the demographic information, down here to consumer spending. So I can see that in Westmoreland County in 2019, the citizens spent about $68 on beer away from home, about $39 on wine away from home, but $258 of alcoholic beverages were consumed at home. So it seems that creating a sports lounge and inviting the neighbors over is probably the right way to go. Now, Census Business Builder can give you even more information that is really worth checking out if you're going to be purchasing a house in a neighborhood. Like, are there child care centers in the area? Are there barber shops or beauty salons? I'd like to find out how many construction companies there are and what their trade specialty is. It's good to know in advance if I have to bring in an electrician from Fredericksburg. We could quite literally stay in Census Business Builder all day, discovering new information. The folks who developed this really did a fantastic job creating a one-stop shop, not only for people interested in starting a business, but for people who need to know more about the area they might be moving into. And who knows, you may decide to start a business from your new home. Westmoreland County doesn't have any photography businesses and only 7 landscaping companies. It could be a new gig. Now let's discuss the American Housing Survey. This survey is conducted by the Census Bureau, and it's sponsored by the Department of Housing and Urban Development. It's the most comprehensive housing survey in the United States. It has information on the size, composition, and quality of the nation's housing. It's conducted every 2 years. The 2019 data is available already. You can find physical conditions of homes, the cost of financing and maintaining a home, and the characteristics of the people who live in these homes. They do have an option where you can download the data and create your own custom tables using their table creator. And as we will see, the latest published data is from 2019, but their data goes all the way back in some categories to 1973. It's a fantastic source. And we're going to explore 2 questions that really barely scratch the surface, but will demonstrate how useful this data can be. The first is, what kind of heating and air conditioning system should I install? What are other people using? I put the parameters here that we'll be putting into the tool so you can retrace our steps yourself after the webinar. And second, I'd like to find out what other people pay for home improvements and renovations so that I can get a ballpark estimate. And can I save some of the money by doing work myself? Again, I put the parameters here, but let's go directly to the table creator and I'll show you what I found. Here's American Housing Survey is loading. And I want to change my select area to Virginia because I'm sticking with my fixer-upper for now. And you can see that the selector already updated to 2017 because 2017 was the most recent year that Virginia was sampled. I want to select the heating, air conditioning, and appliances table from all multitude of tables. And then we'll see what that says by clicking on Get Table. So rolling down a little bit, you can see that of the 3.15 million units sampled, 1.6 million had a warm air furnace, and 1.09 million had an electric heat pump. And the most common fuel for heating their homes in Virginia was electricity. And anyone in Virginia who needs supplemental heat most often will choose portable electric heaters. So I already feel like I know more about which direction I should go if I purchase this house and want to replace the HVAC system. So now let's change the table to look at home improvement costs. Now we're going to go to the national level for this one, and we're going to get the data from 2019. So we'll scroll to home improvement costs, and I'm going to select a variable here. I want to look at professional versus do-it-yourself. And we'll select Get Table. Now I'm going to roll down, and on this web page, these headers at the top of the columns will disappear. So let's just remember that the first column is a total estimate, the second is a professional estimate, and the third is a do-it-yourself estimate. But when you download the data into your own table, of course, you'll know exactly what you're looking at. So I'm rolling past disaster repairs to room additions and renovations. Now you can see that do-it-yourselfers spent approximately $2,000 totally renovating bedrooms. And that's the median number, of course, while professionals did a much bigger job at $19,000. Bathrooms were about $14,400. Kitchens were about $39,950. And these numbers are for a total renovation. Now let's compare that to a remodeling. A bathroom of a remodel was about $6,000, and a kitchen was about $9,000 for a professional remodel. So that really gives me something to think about before I decide to gut the entire bathroom and start over. It seems that typically it would cost about half as much to remodel an existing space as it would to renovate and create a whole new bathroom. And I just want to roll down briefly so you can see the wide array of home improvement projects that are listed in these tables. They have both exterior additions and replacements, as well as interior additions and replacements, and even yard improvements. So all of these numbers can be really useful when you're trying to get a ballpark estimate for a project that you're thinking about. There's even a full table on the mortgage characteristics, which we don't have time to examine all of it, but do take a look. It includes outstanding debt, home equity lines of credit, including their interest rate, the loan-to-value breakouts, cash-out refinances, and even the reasons that borrowers give for their refinance. So I hope you'll check some of that out later. Here we have some important links to share about the American Housing Survey. The first link will take you to a library of webinars on specialty topics and also the webinars that will help you with using the AHS microdata, their table creator, and all of their other tools. The other links are for recently published America Counts articles with timely information on were American homes ready for the pandemic and how many American homes have pests. But they also have many more. And just published, hot off the presses, so to speak, is a new data visualization on single-family houses sold that is broken out by year and by price paid per square foot. So as you can see, in 2020, the category of price per square foot with the most homes sold was between $100 a square foot and $124.99 a square foot. I've got to move on from the American Housing Survey, even though I feel like I've barely scratched the surface of what it includes. But I hope I've given you enough information and a little peek so that you're drawn to explore it further. The Rental Housing Finance Survey. This is one survey that I use all the time. Not everyone realizes that when you live in a 2 to 4 unit building that you rent out, the entire property can be classified as your primary residence. So you have access to lower mortgage rates, traditional home mortgage loans, and you can count up to 75% of the rent as income in your debt-to-income ratio. You can also pass some of the maintenance and utilities expenses on to your tenants. Buyer. But not every duplex is a winner. Some are overpriced and will leave you with more out of pocket than you're prepared to pay. So I'm going to show you how to use this survey to evaluate a listing and decide if purchasing a 2 to 4 unit building is a good idea for you. First, let me tell you what this survey is. It's funded by the Department of Housing and Urban Development, and it includes single-family and multifamily residential properties with at least one housing unit intended for rent. It has financial, managerial, and physical characteristics of rental properties nationwide. The next survey will be conducted this year, and it should be available next year, but the 2018 data is available now. I have a link here to their website, but also a link to their table creator, which we'll go to so you can have a look at how the data is presented. Rental Housing Finance Survey. It's very familiar to the table creator for the American Housing Survey. So here I'd like to change our estimate type to units, and we're going to talk about expenses, although you can see that there are several other tables that have great information. And I want to specifically talk about 2 to 4 unit properties. So as you can see, you can choose multiple different sizes, and the numbers are available there depending on the size of property you're looking at. Now, I just want to show you some of the expenses that we're measuring. Of course, they do have a total, but we also are talking about payroll costs per unit, property maintenance costs, insurance costs, utilities, including electric and gas and water and sewer, management, professional services, security, groundskeeping, operating costs. And then at the bottom, they even have information about what is usually included in rent, what isn't included in rent, so you can get a sense of what creates premium property and what doesn't. So you can see that it's more common for water and sewer to be included in rent than it is for electricity and gas. It's still rather unusual to have cable or internet included in rent, though I'm going to keep an eye on that because it may trend differently in the next few years. But I promised you that I would show you how to use this data, to make a decision. So this is going to feel a little bit like House Hunters, and hopefully if you're watching this webinar, you are familiar with the TV show House Hunters. I'm going to show you 3 different properties that each have very different characteristics, and then we'll use the census numbers to see what we can expect from each one. And I purposely selected 3 very different properties to highlight the fact that the numbers are a decision-making tool, but there are many other factors to consider. So this is property 1, and it's right downtown in Richmond, city center, in the historic district. It's a short walk or a bus ride from just about everything. It has 4 units, 2 one-bedroom units and 2 two-bedroom units, and it's listed at $1 million. This is property number 2 in Heathsville, Virginia, and it's really rural. In fact, it's very close to that fixer-upper we were just talking about. It's waterfront, and it includes a boat dock with 2 boat lifts and a jet ski lift. It's only 2 units, but both are proper houses and not apartments, and the list price is $479,000. The property 3 is clear across on the other side of the state in Roanoke, near the Blue Ridge Mountains. And Roanoke is a college town, so there is no shortage of renters. It's 3 units, a 1-bedroom, a 2-bedroom, and a 3-bedroom. And the current list price is $232,000. So let me show you what this looks like in a spreadsheet. So these are all census numbers. All of these are the expenses we pulled right out of the Rental Housing Finance Survey for each unit. And I plugged in the number of apartments, and I made a little note here that says, this one is mine, because we must remember I'm living there, to remind myself that one of those 2-bedroom apartments is mine. And so you can see, based on all these finances and calculations, that my out-of-pocket expenses will be, I got to change this back home. Pretend you didn't see that yet. It's about $2,123 a month. Now, the apartment only rents for $1,550. So if I'm paying a premium and owning the building, is that a price I'm willing to pay? Now, what if I negotiated the price down? Let's say $900,000. One more zero. No, one less zero. Beg your pardon, folks. Okay. We'll do 900,000. Yeah, that does bring it down to about $1,700 out of pocket every month. Now, is that what I'm looking for? I'm not exactly sure. Let's take a look at property number 2. With the waterfront house, because it's rural, the rents are necessarily lower. Now we can use the same calculations and see that my monthly out-of-pocket expenses are $1,593.70 for a house that rents for about $1,100, perhaps $1,200 if we were pushing it. But we have a boat dock, and our transportation costs have gone up too because we live pretty far from town. So that's something to put into the numbers. Now here's the third property. This is the Roanoke property in the college town. Now I'm going to live in the 2-bedroom and rent out the 3-bedroom and the 1-bedroom. Now these are all the same census numbers in these calculations. And look at that. So your portion of the rent for living in one of the apartments would be about $13,200 a year. But you're making $13,203 a year from tenants and the revenues. So every month you're adding 30 cents a month into your pocket, and your tenants are paying your mortgage and your expenses. But maybe the turnaround of college students renting from you sounds like a real nightmare. Or maybe you're still dreaming about that boat dock. I hope this gives you an idea of how you can use this data and use the Rental Housing Finance Survey to make a wise decision and to explore some scenarios to see what's going to work out best for you. Now, quickly, before I hand over the presentation to my colleague, Amanda, I want to mention the characteristics of new housing survey. The 2020 data for this survey was just released on June 1st. It's partially funded by the Department of Housing and Urban Development, and it provides national annual data on the characteristics of new privately owned residential structures. It includes square footage, the number of bedrooms, bathrooms, type of wall material, sales prices, and more. Many characteristics are available also at the regional level. This data comes from the Survey of Construction, and it includes single-family units completed and sold and multifamily units completed. But let me show you at this link what the data looks like, because seeing all of the variables collected really brings into focus how much great information there is here. So you can see here some of the variables they have collected data for, and it's separated out at the top of the column by type. And each one of these links takes you to a time series of that data so you can examine trends over time. So before I show you this cool interactive house on the right, I want to point out that they have manufactured housing data separated here on the left, because modular housing and manufactured housing are becoming more and more popular, and they have a separate data item for that, so you can explore that a little bit further when you have time, of course. But I do want to show you this interactive graphic of this house. They've done a really nice job presenting this. You can see that they have data for both completed units and sold units, and if you hover over any of the squares or circles, a pop-up will give you the value for 2020. For example, if I hover over the air conditioning unit, I discover that of the 822,000 houses sold in 2020, 789,000 had central air conditioning. And if I were to click on any of the dots or squares, it would take me right to the data for that variable. Now, I could keep you all day going through this, and I would really enjoy it, but instead, I'm going to pass it over to my colleague because she has even more information on additional data that will help us guide us to buying a house using census data.
All right, thank you, Melinda. That's some great information from our econ programs. Thank you. My name is Amanda Klimek, and I work with the Census Bureau's American Community Survey Office's Outreach and Education Branch. So we're going to start by going over some of the basics to get you familiar with the ACS if you're not already, and some background on the different data sets and topics that we have. And we're going to go back to house hunting in Westmoreland County, and we're going to take a look at some of the housing characteristics that we can find on data.census.gov. So we found a couple of potential dream houses with Melinda earlier. And we also want to know how, moving to this area might affect our work life, from, the industries available to the commute and the way we get to work. And finally, we're going to take a look at some resources for finding out more. And we're going to leave you with some ways you can reach out for help with the survey, as well as ways to get involved with the ACS community. So just start with a little bit of background. First, we're going to cover some basics about the American Community Survey, or ACS. The ACS is the nation's most current, reliable, and accessible data source for local statistics on critical planning topics such as age, children, veterans, commuting, education, income, and employment, and, of course, housing. It samples approximately 3.5 million addresses, and the data are collected continuously throughout the year to produce annual social, economic, housing, and demographic estimates. The data collected through the ACS, along with other census programs, such as the Population Estimates Program, are used to help inform over $675 billion of federal government spending each year. The ACS covers more than 40 topics. We'll get into some of those 40 topics in a minute here. They're going to be very useful for you. And it supports more than 300 known federal uses and countless non-federal uses. Businesses and communities use these estimates each year to make vital decisions, including where to locate hospitals and schools, and what transportation needs exist, and what goods and services businesses should provide to customers. And every now and then, you can use the data as well with applied uses like we're showing you today to do things like buying a house. So we release 3 different sets of estimates each year. 1-year estimates for large populations, 1-year supplemental estimates for small populations, 5-year estimates, and 1-year supplemental estimates for the smallest populations. 5-year estimates for the smallest populations. So you can see these estimates broken down here in a little bit more detail, and I'll clarify a little bit about the levels of geography for these estimates. So the 1-year estimates for the largest geographies are collected over 1 calendar year and include geographies with populations 65,000 and above. So that middle section for the smaller estimates, 1-year supplemental estimates, include modified versions of popular 1-year tables and include geographies with populations of 20,000 and above. And 5-year estimates, which are collected over a period of 60 months or 5 years, include the most granular levels of geography, such as census tract and block group, which is really useful for analyzing neighborhoods. And I know that a lot of you are probably interested in that data, so we'll get into that a little bit soon here. So the content collected by the ACS can be grouped into these 4 main types of characteristics: social, economic, housing, and demographic. And you can see some of the social characteristics listed on the left here, including popular topics such as disability and educational attainment. In the middle here, the ACS also collects basic demographic characteristics such as age, Hispanic origin, race, relationship, and sex. And this is the same information that you might recognize is collected on the decennial census that happened every 10 years, such as the one that just happened recently, the 2020 census. below that, economic characteristics such as income, employment status, and the others you see here provide us some information on the economy. And then finally, I have it in bold because it's, one of our most important ones today. We have the housing characteristics on the right, which include both the physical and the financial characteristics of housing, such as year built, which is a physical characteristic, and home value, which is a financial characteristic. So those are just two examples of some of the information we have. And I want to point out that each question on the ACS is required for federal and state government programs. And we provide a resource on the ACS website called the Why We Ask page, which gives the public information on the required use cases for these questions as well as how they appear on the questionnaire. So this is a useful page for people responding to the questionnaire, knowing if they want to know where their data is going. But I think it's also, I'm going to navigate to it real quick here. So we start on census.gov/ACS. We went to, on the left-hand navigation, we went to About the ACS. And then we're just going to go to Why We Ask Each Question. And I think the reason I love this page so much is you can scroll down and you can see all the different topics. And I'm going to go to housing costs for owners because I think that's probably one of the ones we're going to get into the most today. And you can see how this data is used. You can see some real use cases for how this data is used. And not only that, but you can see the questions as they appear on the form. You can view the questions, and you can see all of the questions that go into this variable and how the categories that people are given to respond to them and what's all included. So I think this is a really great page for being able to show you some of that more detailed information about what goes into your data. All right, so. All right, so the ACS provides data for more geographies on an annual basis than any other household survey. And the great thing about this slide is that we can see how the different levels of geography interact with one another. So the lower levels of geography fit neatly within the larger areas connected with lines. So for example, you can see congressional districts, school districts, and places, which includes cities, towns, and other municipalities, which are all things you might be interested in if you want to know the kind of neighborhood you're moving into, fit neatly within states and don't cross state boundaries. But they may cross boundaries of counties or metropolitan areas since they're not directly connected. The ACS's unique ability to report on a wide range of geographies is what gives it such a broad appeal. And to give you a quick primer on census tracts and block groups, census tracts are small statistical subdivisions within a county with populations of 1,200 to about 8,000 people. So think small towns, rural areas, and neighborhoods. And block groups are, as the name implies, a group of blocks within a census tract with about 600 to 3,000 people. So now that we've started with the basics, let's dig into this data a little deeper. And we're going to head over to data.census.gov now. It's our primary data dissemination platform for the Census Bureau. And we're going to learn a little bit more about Westmoreland County and learn a little bit more about our dream home. So we're going to go here and we're going to start on data.census.gov. And we're just going to go to the advanced search. This gives us some good filters to start with while we're looking. We know that we want to start with Westmoreland County. So we are going to go to Virginia here, and we are going to find our county. And we're going to go ahead and put that into our search. So any table that we have is going to return results for Westmoreland County. And then we're going to go down to surveys, and we're going to go into the American Community Survey section. And as we learned earlier, we have a couple different options here. And we know from earlier, we have that magical 65,000 population number. And I happen to know off the top of my head that Westmoreland County falls under that. So we are going to use the 5-year estimates in order to get detailed data for Westmoreland County. So I'm going to go ahead and select our data profiles here because these are the 4 profiles that give you a really detailed portrait of the community using those 4 broad categories that I mentioned earlier, the social, economic, housing, and demographic characteristics. So you can go here, and it returns these 4 tables. And I'm just going to go ahead and click on View All Tables here. So here we have a demographic breakdown of the area, and we have, the age breakdown, age, race, sex, all of that, and then we have social characteristics here. And I think this is a really great one. There's some really good information on, school enrollment is a good variable to look at in here. So, if you want to know about how many people are enrolled in, how many kids are enrolled in preschool, stuff like that. And then there's some information about computers down at the bottom, computer and internet use, although we're going to get into that a little deeper further into the presentation. So, because that's a especially relevant topic right now. And so we have this economic characteristics right here. And we have some great information on, the way people commute to work. Again, that's another topic we're going to delve into a little deeper. And we have great information on industry and occupation. So, who works where? And, what industries are people working in this area? And what kind of occupations do they have? So I think this is a really kind of a great overview of, sort of the economic profile of the area. I think what we're most interested in today is we have this selected housing characteristics table. So this is the fourth table. It's the housing table. And it really gives you a detailed housing stock breakdown of the area. So we have, our owner versus renter occupied breakdown. The great thing about data profiles is they provide you with both an estimate and a percent. So you can see, the estimate of the number here, and we have the percent here on the right. And, generally the physical characteristics, so the year the structure is built, how many units are in the structure. So if you can see how many multi-unit structures there are, the general, age of the housing stock, number of rooms. You can go through this and you can find a lot of really detailed physical information about the housing stock. How long people have lived there. We have year moved. So some really great information. And something you might not even realize was available in the housing information is how many vehicles are available in each housing unit. House heating fuel, which I know that Melinda talked about a little earlier. But I'm going to go ahead and this might be something people are interested in. Home value, we have the median home value, and we have a detailed breakdown of the distribution of home values right here. But this is one of the variables I want to focus on right now. And this is selected monthly owner costs. And I know, so I work for the ACS, and I shouldn't pick favorites, but this might be one of my favorite variables that we have. I think it's one of the more unique variables that we have in the ACS, and I think it gives us a lot of interesting information that, you generally might not be able to find anywhere else. So let me show you real quick what is included in selected monthly owner costs here. So selected monthly owner costs include mortgages, taxes, insurance, utilities, all those monthly costs that, when you're looking to buy a house, sometimes you think of the mortgage and you think of, can I afford the mortgage payment? I know that we looked at Melinda's little budget spreadsheet earlier, and that was really helpful. It kind of gives us a breakdown of what we should be looking into. So, when you're budgeting to buy your home, those are things you need to keep in mind. What are the taxes like? What might I pay in utilities? And what kind of insurance costs might I expect? So these are all just, there's quite a few different costs here that are, monthly costs that are often included in housing. And these are all rolled up into one very convenient variable, selected monthly owner costs. So this is just like an estimate of what people are paying monthly when they own a home. So I think this is a really cool variable. Also, real quick, I'm going to go back to this for a second. You can actually get a breakdown if you have any questions about any of our variables and what's included in them. You can go to this on the ACS webpage. You can go to our code list section, and I got all of this from our subject definitions document. I'm just going to navigate to it real quick. So yeah, you can quickly get to our subject definitions document. You can go to technical documentation, and you can go to code list definitions and accuracy. And this is a subject definitions document. If you're interested in pretty much any specific definition of any ACS variable, what's included in selected monthly owner costs, for example, you can go to the subject definitions document, or how home value is defined, how your built is defined. Any of these variables, you can look up the official definition of how it's defined in this document. So that's a pretty cool resource that we have, and I'm going to go ahead and go back to our analysis here. So we have it broken down in housing units with a mortgage, housing units without a mortgage. We're going to really look at housing units with a mortgage today. And then not only that, but underneath we have selected monthly owner costs as a percentage of household income, which is an even cooler variable. So after you do your budget, and you can see, what percentage of your income you are spending on this house that you're looking at, you can go in here and you can see if that's standard for the area. Again, I think this is a really great variable for budgeting, honestly, and just seeing how you fit in, like with what your expected costs are going to be and what you might be able to expect to pay for the area. So I'm going to go into this customized table area, and I'm actually going to map this. Actually, before I'm going to map it, I'm going to show you. Once you go into customized table, you can, up here in the toolbar, you can click on, we have one geo in here, one geography, and that is Westmoreland County. I'm going to go ahead and click on that. I'm going to take out Westmoreland County. It will make sense in a moment. And I'm going to go into tract. And I'm going to look at all of the census tracts in Westmoreland County. So I'm going to scroll down, so tract, and then Virginia, and then Westmoreland County. And I'm going to click on all census tracts in Westmoreland County. We're pretty fortunate that there's only 4. So now we can, we can compare all this data for each individual census tract. And, where are these census tracts, you might be asking? Well, we're going to go ahead and map them. So we are going to go ahead and go into our map application here. And here we see the census tracts from Westmoreland County. Currently, we are just mapping the total number of households, but I want to go ahead and go in and map that selected monthly owner costs as a percentage of income variable. And actually, this is here. We want to be in the housing table. Okay. All right, so we are going to go ahead and map here. All right, so this is the total number of housing units. And I want to go in and find the selected monthly owner costs as a percentage of income. And I want to do it with a mortgage. So I'm going to go ahead and let's look at these census tracts and map what percent of these have a selected monthly owner cost as a percentage of income as of 35% or more. And so you can kind of see, where you might be expecting to pay more of a percentage of your housing costs in those monthly, or a percentage of your income in terms of monthly housing costs. Let's go ahead and look at less than 20% and look at where that might be. You can kind of see it's a little, they're a little inverse of each other. So, this is a pretty cool mapping application that shows you, that helps you kind of see where all of this data is located. So this is all of Westmoreland County. Here, just to the west, we have King George County. What if we wanted to compare, nearby census tracts that aren't in Westmoreland County and see what the housing burden is over there? We're just going to click on them, and we can click select, and we can add a couple of those in. Pretty easy. So, all right. And so we went ahead and took a look at some of the housing stock in general, like housing costs that you might be able to expect. How will this decision affect my work and commute? To see what happens here, we're going to go ahead and we are going to go back to our data.census.gov, And we're just going to take a look at commuting. So here, I went to the advanced search again. I'm going to topics this time because you can filter by individual topics as well. So we're going to go under employment and then commuting. And I'm just going to click on this first table here and see if it's something I might be interested in. And yeah, this is a pretty cool table. It shows me, you know, how people are getting to work. It shows me if they took public transportation, if they bicycled, if they work from home. That's a pretty interesting one right there, as you might well be familiar with. Keep in mind that this is our latest data is from the 2019 data release cycle, so might not reflect current trends yet, but you know, if people worked in the state they lived in or in the town they lived in, the time they left for work, the amount of time it took them to get to work. So this is pretty cool. You'll notice this is for the United States. I just want to take a moment to show you that if you find a table you want, you know, earlier we added in our geographies before we did a search, but you can always add in more geographies. Make sure you're using the 5-year estimates. We're going to use this little product drop down right here. And we are going to add in our geographies here. We're going to go ahead to Westmoreland County and add that back in. And then we'll have all of this great commuting information for Westmoreland County. And as you know by now, you can do it for census tracts as well. So you can see for all those smaller areas of the county, vehicles available, you know, information like that. So this is some really great information to give you a general profile of how it's like commuting in the county. But we see here some people don't work in their state of residence or even their town. So where are they going to? We even have some information on that. So for this, this is a data product that is not available on census.gov, but is a very useful data product, and it is called our commuting flows. So I'm going to go to census.gov, just plain old census.gov, and I'm just going to search for commuting flows. And this should take us right to where we want to be. Yeah. So the 2011 to 2015 5-year commuting flows, this is the latest available. And we are just going to, let's see, we want table 1 because we want the resident, we're interested in the residence county because we're interested in people who live in Westmoreland County to the workplace county. And we want it sorted by the residence geography. So we want it sorted by, you know, where people are living, so that we can quickly see Westmoreland County. So we're going to go ahead and click on that. And I actually already went through the process of downloading this so that we didn't have to wait for it. This is what you get when you first open it up. As you can see, it gives you, you know, commuting information from every county in the country to every other county in the country where people commute from that area. So I went ahead and did a little bit of cleaning on this, and I picked out just Westmoreland County. I just did some a little bit of sorting and filtering, and that involved taking out Pennsylvania, unfortunately, because there is a Westmoreland County, Pennsylvania. As much as I love Pennsylvania, we are interested in Virginia right now. So I sorted this worksheet from based on this workers and commuting flow variable here. So I sorted it based on how many commuters are taking that path from X county to Y county. So obviously, as we would expect, the largest number of commuters are commuting within the county from Westmoreland County to Westmoreland County. The second, you know, biggest group is commuting from Westmoreland County to that King George County that we saw just west of the county. And as we can see here, it just generally goes down in number in the surrounding counties until we get to Maryland, and then, you know, DC, and you know, we can scroll down a little bit further, and we can see how many people, you know, work in a workplace outside of the U.S. And we can see the number of workers in that commuting flow. So this is a pretty cool little tool that we have to be able to give you a little deeper analysis into generally where people are commuting in your area. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and go back to data.census.gov because there's a lot of people, there's a lot of people working from home right now, and they might want to know about internet connectivity in their area. So we're going to go, again, under topics, we're going to go under populations and people. We're going to go under computer and internet use, and we're going to take a look at one of these tables. We have types of computers and internet subscriptions. Do people have broadband internet? Do people have a data plan? How many people are connected? Stuff like that. And, so this might be helpful for you if you're figuring out how to work from home. What about your kids going to school? So let's go ahead and change it again to 5-year estimates. You might want to see what the connectivity is like in the school district. So like I said, we have a lot of different options for geographies. And let's see here. Do a little refresh, make sure. Internet. All right, so we are going to go ahead and go into the 5-year estimates, and we are going to go into the geographies, and we are going to go to school district. All right, it doesn't want to cooperate right now, but if you go under Unified School District, you are able to add in the school district for your area, and you can see the connectivity in your area. So we are going to go ahead and you can find any of the tables that we saw today in the school district section. Okay, so now that we have, kind of covered some more of this information and giving you more of the information that you can use from the Census Bureau and from the ACS to find the information you need to start your home search, we are going to go ahead and look at some resources for learning more. So this is our homepage, which I showed you earlier, and we've kind of discovered a little bit, we've kind of delved into this a little bit. So, you can learn information about the ACS. You can get some guidance for data users, includes some great information on handbooks that we have for using our data. We post all of our webinars under our training presentation section. And then under our technical documentation section is where we showed you that great subject definitions document earlier. And you can see, table changes, if there's any user notes that you, with important information that you need to see. It's just a great place to look for more information. So on that note, if you do end up using this data for any other, any really cool stories or anything, or any really cool uses to create outcomes in your community, we want to hear about it. So go ahead and go to this Share Your Story feature. And this is how we source stories that we share with our data users to show how people are using the data. And so I also want to take this opportunity to remind everybody that there's a group specifically for users of the ACS, and it allows data users to show how they're using the data and solicit advice and feedback from their ideas from over 3,000 members. Membership is free and open to all interested data users, and more information can be found at acsdatacommunity.prb.org, which is at the bottom of the slide. Finally, you can sign up for and manage alerts on ACS news and events such as conferences and webinars via GovDelivery. You can visit our website, or you can connect on social media using the hashtag ACSData. And for support, you can reach out to us at acso.users.support@census.gov. And if you do end up using our data to do any cool housing projects or otherwise, make sure to source us. It helps people figure out where they can get the detailed information that we are giving you today. And with that, I would like to turn it over to Linda to wrap us up today.
Thank you, Melinda and Amanda, for the wonderful presentation on how our data users can use census data to help in their decision-making. Thank you, everyone, for your interest in our data and for attending today's webinar. Now, before we begin our Q&A, please take note of the contact information listed here. Oh, oops, the slide moved. Okay, thank you. So listed here is information for our data dissemination specialists. This is for anyone who may be interested in a hands-on in-person training. We have specialists assigned by geography that will be able to provide you with this service. Now, in our virtual room with us today, we have subject matter experts from our programs that you have seen today. So you may hear additional voices in addition to mine, Melinda, or Amanda. And as a reminder, we're focusing our Q&A on today's topic, and we will be accepting questions related to today's topic. If you have questions related to on other topics, please feel free to send an email to us at census.askdata@census.gov. And now we'd like to open up the lines for the Q&A portion of this section. Let's check in with our operator. Operator, at this time, do we have questions in the queue?
If you would like to ask a question, please press *1 and record your name when prompted. And if you'd like to withdraw your question, please press *2. One moment to see if you have any questions. Please limit to one question and one follow-up question.
So while we're waiting for the operator to queue up our questions, I want to mention that if you haven't already seen it, we have a COVID-19 data hub that pulls together census data on the pandemic in one central location. Here, you'll be able to find out how the pandemic has affected businesses and households alike. Let's go ahead and check back in with our operator. Operator, do we have questions in the queue?
Hi, Linda. I think he's checking in. He's probably pulling some of the questions in at this moment.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Greg. I wasn't sure. So at this time, we do have a list. I see that Amanda is scrolling through our reference section. We do have a list of the other construction and housing programs in this section for you, and the links are they're hot links. So when you get a copy of this slide deck, you'll be able to go ahead and hit on those links and access all the other information as well. And this will give you a comprehensive picture of everything as you make your decision on where you'd like to buy a house. Okay, I'm reading the questions coming in. And someone asked where can I get this presentation? So the presentation will be available on our site using the link provided here within the chat. And you will have a copy of the transcript as well and the slides. Okay, someone wrote, this is very helpful for my business. We plan to relocate. So the data tool that Melinda demonstrated, the Census Business Builder, if you have not had the opportunity to play around with that or use it, I highly encourage you to go in and check it out. It is very user-friendly. And if you have any questions at all, please feel free to give us a call at the Data User and Trade Outreach number, and we will be able to assist and provide additional details. At the same time, on that site, we have many flyers and webinars to help you as well.
So, Linda, while we're waiting, I just saw a question pop up. I can go ahead and answer if we don't have any questions, any other phone questions. I just happened to see it pop up, so I can take a crack at it.
Sure, that would be great. Thanks.
Yeah, so the question I saw was, what is the difference between the American Community Survey and the American Housing Survey? They seem pretty similar, and that is a good observation. They both they're both household surveys, so that's probably why they seem pretty similar. They're both household surveys. They are not a survey of businesses. They are a survey, it surveys, households and asks people about their, about their households and about their housing. So they both provide a lot of interesting information. Obviously, the American Housing Survey mostly focuses on housing data, whereas the American Community Survey focuses on, also the social, economic, and demographic data. The ACS is available at much more granular levels of geography. I know that the American Housing Survey is available at much broader levels of geography. So, nation, region, a couple other smaller ones, but not down to, census tract or block group level. So it's much higher level. Also, the ACS asks questions that are required for like statutory purposes. So if a federal agency requires the information, that is the information that's available on this ACS, whereas the AHS, American Housing Survey, has a little bit more experimentation with what kind of questions they can put on the survey. So the American Housing Survey also comes out a little less frequency, or with a little frequency. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's every 2 years. And the ACS we, went over earlier is annual. So.
Thanks, Amanda.
Hi, this is Matt Street. Oh, sorry, this is Matt Streeter, and and that was a really good answer. I can expand a little bit with AHS. The AHS is also a panel survey, so the AHS will follow the same housing units each cycle. And I also saw a question in the chat about financing, like source of financing, whether that's available. So I can speak at least for the AHS. There's no information in AHS about cryptocurrency in particular, but there are data in the AHS about like the source of down payment, whether it was from like a sale of previous home, savings, inheritance, and certain broader categories like that. But cryptocurrency isn't specifically an option.
Thank you, Matt. Let's check in with our operator and see if we have questions over the phone line. Operator, do we have any questions over the phone? So while we're waiting for the operator, let's look through some of our chat questions to see if we have missed any. It looks like many of our questions have been addressed. Greg, at this moment, do we know if anything has been queued up?
So I'm not hearing from the operator at this point, so sounds like we're not going to get any phone questions. So,
excuse me?
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a question.
Operator, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. Are there any, just wondering if there were any phone questions?
Yes, we have a question. Your line is open.
Okay, yes. I'm wondering if you can find any information about the crime rates in the area on either site.
So as far as crime rates, the Census Bureau does have a survey. I think it's the National Crime Victimization Survey, but the data, I believe, somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, is through the Department of Justice. So the Department of Justice would be the best source of information for crime data. So I would definitely check that out.
And I can answer for the AHS for crime. And I echo that. I think the Department of Justice has some good crime statistics. The way that it works for AHS, the respondents are asked their opinion about crime in the area around them. So in AHS, if you're on the table creator, there's a table called neighborhoods, and so it's in that section where the households are asked whether, in their opinion, there is a lot of petty crime in their neighborhood or serious crime in their neighborhood. So those statistics are available, but it is like a self-reported response rather than like a metric you might see from Justice.
Thank you, Amanda and Matt. Let's check in with our operator again. Operator, do we have additional questions?
I am showing no additional questions.
At this moment, I'd like to express our thanks to everyone for attending today's webinar. This concludes today's presentation. Please stay tuned for the presentations and slides to post on our site. Have a great day.